And we're live again with the Impact Narrative.
Only just.
Just about.
Good. And
technology failings.
And it's even better to be back
Again.
than it was about 15 minutes ago when we said how good it was to be back for our discussion of the Middle East.
Yeah.
We're back.
Again.
Indeed. So
it's
Simon.
I'm sure there was a pop song from the 1990s.
Called We're Back.
Someone's back.
Right.
Backstreet's back.
Well,
that's it.
You know, right.
But obviously,
okay.
we're a bit more of the zeitgeist. I know you were listening to Taylor Swift earlier on, Mark.
I was involuntarily listening to Taylor Swift, and it sounded dire. And you like it?
I
so.
like it. I think it's wonderful. I think it's very catchy. She's throwing shade, or saying you shouldn't throw shade, or do you know what shade is, Mark?
Yeah, it's stuff where there's light on one side of an object, and then it's darker in the other side of the object because of the. I think there's some physics explanation for it.
Ross, we on track?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Anyway, let's get moving.
Bemused.
Let's get moving.
So calm down. I gave you the segue into David Cameron.
Yeah, well, I know, but we're going to work on that.
Okay.
David Cameron did the first version. This Taylor Swift thing is a cover version of what was done so much more rhythmically by Dave.
Where is Dave?
Dave,
he's in a garden shed, I believe.
Well, I'd imagine so, and but I think I'm not sure if his memoirs have been finished, but if they have, they're going to have to be rewritten, you know, on not just a daily basis, almost hour by hour, because obviously the feud with Boris Johnson may well be featured in his relations with Boris Johnson, which of course brings us to the questions which you're burning to tell me.
So
ask me.
Where are we at with Brexit?
Oh, Brexit. Oh, well, we're in this state. Obviously, I think it was Tusk, was it, who said, use the time that we've given you till the end of October. Use that time wisely.
Use it wisely.
And it has been used very entertainingly, but maybe not necessarily wisely. We now have two candidates for the Conservative Party leadership. The next Prime Minister will, I imagine, unless something strange happens, be one of those two individuals, and neither of them have got a plausible story to tell about Brexit. So I mean, I've always said, I think probably on this programme years ago, that we were limping towards a soft Brexit rather than, you know, rescinding Article 50, which would be so fraught with so many problems. And I think what's happened really on the Brexit front is perfectly in line with that. Obviously, Labour is now moving towards embracing a second referendum, but the leadership doesn't want a second referendum. The recent European parliamentary election show that the country is as polarised as ever. There's got, in the end, I think just through war fatigue, there'll be some kind of agreement, almost a cross-party agreement on a Brexit which is, as well, Brexit in name only, Brino, which will disappoint some of our...
Has that been used before?
It has indeed.
Oh, right.
And there was a boxer called Frank Brino. He was Brexit in name only, as his friends never called him.
Indeed.
Next question.
I
want to talk about the Tory leadership because it's so much more
you do.
libel.
It just strikes me
hazardous.
that we've been given this X number of month period to use wisely and to get some type of...
To use Weasley, as fans of Harry Potter might.
To get some type of direction, though, and
that's what he was saying, actually, to you. Anyway, go on.
Right.
He just mistranslated.
Instead, what we've got is the country in uproar, the party...
It's not in uproar. I don't see any protesters outside. It's all calm.
Not outside this window. We see a wind turbine, a windmill.
I walked past on the day of the last ballot, between the penultimate and the final ballot, I walked past Westminster, and really, you know, the usual European flags and whatever, it was pretty quiet. I think, you know, I do think a mood of resignation has set in with those who want a very clean break. That's just my feeling. I think when people are asked to vote, it's still going to be virtually 50-50, but I think that the realisation has set in, and this is the service the Conservative leader debate is doing as much as anything, that Rory Stewart has said, look, you two are promising things which can't be delivered. And I think it's already been penciled in, the strong possibility that if Boris Johnson becomes Prime Minister, that he will be the one who says, we wanted a clean break, we can't have a clean break. My friends, fellow Britons, fellow inhabitants of this glorious nation with a great future ahead of it, blah, blah, blah. Oh,
God,
and by the way...
That was uncanny.
I didn't use any long words either. But if that does happen, he will actually be far better at advocating, putting forward the idea that we have to basically compromise, much better than Jeremy Hunt, because Jeremy Hunt is already seen as somebody who's too amenable to compromise. What you want is the hardliner, just like the Good Friday Agreement. You need the hardliners to be the ones who say we can't have a hard line.
Yeah, makes sense.
But
so in that sense, you're advocating Boris.
Well, some people are. I mean, I spoke to somebody fairly close to people close to the high command of Labour last week, and they were saying, well, this is before the result of the final ballot was known, we'd much rather have Boris Johnson than Gove, because there's a chance that Gove might actually achieve something, whereas there's no chance at all that Boris Johnson will achieve anything. So they were quite relaxed, intensely relaxed. And this is the thing, that the Tories are in a spiral of miscomprehension. They think that because Boris Johnson appeals to them, they can't escape from the likelihood, the possibility that as people get to know more about him, those who are not Boris fans are going to become more Boris foes, to the extent that all kinds of things will happen. That if he is Prime Minister and faces the electorate as Conservative leader, there will be an enormous tactical voting effort to ensure that the Conservatives are destroyed at the next general, because the feeling of dislike for this man is it's strong already and getting bigger and bigger. And at the same time, the Tories are saying Labour are having a go at him because they're frightened of him. You see what I mean? Once you're in this chamber of misunderstanding,
chamber of Boris,
it's almost as if anyone who was trying to entice them to their doom couldn't have done a better job. They're rushing headlong to their doom, and it is their doom. The reason why sensible people in the party have voted for him in the leadership contests is because they see him as really their last chance. That's how bad it is, that the Tory party will cease to exist if desperate things aren't done.
Right.
And of course, if a compromise thing is that the other narrative is this party is a great survivor and it shouldn't do anything to risk its survival, but it's got to the point where mere survival isn't on the agenda. It's either triumphant vindication or oblivion.
And how then do you respond to this suggestion, which is quite a powerful one? It's not one that has just been levied at the Conservative Party, it was levied at Gordon Brown, the idea that a very small group of people are picking the next leader of the country, and it's supposed to be democracy.
Well, this is it. Obviously, Johnson in particular is frightened of a general election in the immediate aftermath of troubles for the Tory party, and so he seems not to want a general election, but his only chance is to have a snap election before everyone realises how unsuitable he is for the role of Prime Minister. But you just have a tick box of reasons why there should be a general election. And
give us some examples.
Well, the one that you've mentioned, but also the parliamentary arithmetic. And you see the logic of because this Parliament has been incapable of really deciding anything positive about Brexit. So the obvious thing is we've got a new leader, we need a mandate for the new leader, but we also need a new House of Commons. And then you see Boris Johnson would be saying almost it's a people against Parliament election. And Boris Johnson would have been able to say, you knew what you were doing in 2015, 2016 in the referendum, when you were fully, however, in 2017, when you elected the current Parliament, the current House of Commons, you really didn't know what you were doing, and a lot of people fooled you into thinking they would deliver Brexit, whereas in fact, so my friends, my countrymen, my fellow inhabitants of this glorious land with a past adorned by myself and Churchill and other people, we must confront these betrayers and wreckers, and we know who they are. Yeah, the other thing, so in other words, there was a narrative set up for him to bumble his way through with his shirt hanging out and looking dishevelled and tousled, and people would think, wow, he's an authentic human being. I know a really authentic human being when I see him. He's a real person. Wow. But then the other thing, of course, is that he could be forced to have a general election by a vote of no confidence, and then he would have that same narrative. It's either you do it voluntarily or you do it involuntarily. Either way, you do it. If Boris Johnson is leader and Prime Minister, there is no way that he can, in a way which is persuasive, avoid a general election. Because, as I say,
Sure.
the reasons for it are so mountainous. And, you know, you could say it's an alternative to a referendum, and let's really fight on what we believe, rather than, because obviously in the last general election Labour said, oh, all right, we believe in Brexit, and the Tories have been saying, you said you believe in Brexit, and of course, you know, it was all just this kowtowing to the Leavers, which has happened ever since the shock of 2016.
We're rapidly running out
We
of
are,
time.
and
I can see Ros waving, gesticulating wildly
Through the glass.
But
Yeah.
does the same thing, just quickly, does the same thing apply to Jeremy Hunt then, if he was to...
No, far less, because again, he would have been hired almost as an acceptance that there's got to be a compromise, because the person who's best at delivering a compromise would be the hardliner, Johnson, but you might say the person who's best at negotiating a seamless compromise would be a compromiser, would be Jeremy Hunt. And so he could just, his argument will be, you've got this apocalyptic view of the Tories' future. Why not think that if somebody, after all that Theresa May did all the hard work and she's fallen victim to it, now let's just pick up her work and drive a very similar deal, but at least both sides and the public now know how hard it is to make a deal. And that deal would be the withdrawal bill, with something about the backstop, with the heat taken out of the backstop thing, and then a political declaration which says it's going to be a Frank Briner.
Excellent. So one name, who's going to be the next Prime Minister?
Oh God, I've no Taylor Swift.
Excellent. So, it's wonderful to be back. We'll
It
be
is.
back again.
We
I'm
never
sure.
really went away. You were always in our hearts. If you,
that's
whatever you think about this, like it on one of these contraptions that you can do. Which are they? Which are these things that you can use to
Computers?
computers? But there's all these things, isn't there? There's Facebook. There's Snapagram. There's Twitface. Well, I have Twitter. Yeah, all those things.
We're
all
also
the above.
on
We'll point-
SoundCloud. You can listen to us on
YouTube.
Spotify, on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah. Wow. There's a whole
on
range.
Acast. We are everywhere.
The platforms are, you know, there's a plethora of platforms on which you can like us.
On
And
that note,
Good, yes, it's been great chatting these things, and thank you very much to Ros. Thanks to all you, our fellow countrymen and fellow inhabitants of this glorious country.